What's up, everybody? This is Cam from Smoke for All the Friction, and this is the Independent Musician Podcast. And I got with me again Disco Volante, or his actual name, Matthew Booth. We're going to be talking about some of the best and worst gear purchases that we have ever made. What's going on, man?
Not much. This is a topic I could talk about for a great number of hours because I am always making new gear purchases. But you know what they say, take care of your equipment and your equipment will take care of you. So, how about you go first?
All right, well, let's just start with good. We'll start with good stuff.
Okay, we'll start with good stuff.
This is a weird. I'll probably start in lowest price, and then we'll go up to most.
Okay.
Probably the best gear purchase per money that I've ever spent was I bought a bunch of Velcro cable ties. I mean, it was like a 40 pack for like $5 or something. Oh my God, my life is like probably 3% better like right now because of that purchase.
You see these?
Yes, exactly those. Like seriously, whatever you're doing, stop. And if you have if it's Christmas time and you know a musician, buy this for them. This will make their life better.
Velcro cable ties will solve all of your tangled cable quandaries. This is a top tip from every musician. For every musician, you know, you got a musician friend or family or loved one who's got everything. You know, Gibson Les Paul, Marshall stack, cable ties. That's what you need.
Don't buy my guitar stand. They have enough. Buy them this.
So yeah, good call. I really can't get enough of those.
All right, what you got?
Okay.
I don't have any philosophical answer behind that one. That's just the most practical thing ever.
Right. Yeah, we were thinking maybe we would shift a little bit away for this week's podcast and go for something a little bit more. Well, you know, I think all the stuff we talk about is practical at some point or another. You know.
Yeah, and I'm sure we'll make this conversation impractical somehow.
Well, we'll try our best. Best gear purchase I've ever made. Does Ableton count?
Yeah.
So yeah, I think I kind of came to Ableton at a strange time because for the longest time I was like totally a Cubase user. Then I got into Native Instruments Machine. That was really, really nice. And I just at the time I wasn't doing an awful lot of using like computers on stage. I you know, I had a lot of hardware stuff going on and not too much in the way of like needing a program, and all the stuff I did I sequenced in Cubase. But then one of my DJ friends who I used to run a nightclub with in Chapel Hill, Isaac Park, he was like, "Oh man, you gotta get into Ableton." I was like, "Oh, I've tried it before. It's, you know, it's just whatever." He's like, "No, you gotta get into Ableton." And I was like, "Okay, it's been a couple of years." I think the last version of Ableton I had tried was like 6 or 5, like way back in before the big revamp. And I was like, "Oh, whatever, you know, it's like it's for DJs. It's, you know, I don't need it." And then I tried it, and it changed my life. So.
That's the perfect time because I was actually reading some articles about it. They spent, I mean, as a software developer, what this is, it sounds like something that every company should do, but no company ever does this. They literally spent a year and all they did was fix bugs. Basically, not a single new thing was added to the software. All they did was fix bugs. Like that does not happen in software because it's a death wish because you're like, what'd you do new this year? You spent $10 million, but you did nothing. Well, we fixed all the stuff that we should have fixed before, but and that's why it's such a stable product.
Yeah, and you and I have talked about this before, how difficult it is to make Ableton break. Like,
you can unplug just devices in the middle of it and plug them back in, and it's like, stuff. Okay.
It doesn't care. So Ableton, really, that's probably like a top purchase for me. Let me think. How about how about this? For a long time, for a lot of my live mixing, I would use a Pioneer DJM 800 digital mixer, industry standard, really, really nice. And recently, after my friend Martika Fair, formerly known as DJ Twerka, introduced me to the Allen and Heath Zone mixers. And those are they're analog mixers. They're kind of built with a different philosophy than the Pioneers. You know, very no effects, but a very punchy, warm, kind of clean signal path. And I gotta say, it has made a difference. Listening to like recordings that I've taken of myself playing live, and
it's that noticeable.
It really is, yeah. You know, the Pioneers have this crispness that the zones aren't quite as sharp and digital, but the Allen and Heath Zone 92, it's got this punch about it. It's one of those indescribable things, and you don't really understand it until you hear it on like a big concert sound system, and it's like, oh wow, it really does punch a bit harder. So that was another one that really kind of changed my like live sound a lot.
All right. We all obviously just want to talk about the worst gear purchases we've ever done. That's really what we're here to talk about. Let's just be real. Look at you making good decisions and planning out your choices before you buy them. When did you not do that?
you, you remember this? I've made plenty of bad purchases too, Cam. Don't worry.
At least that one that you had hope and there was a possibility that it wouldn't be a poor choice.
Yeah, well, I feel like most of our poor choices start out with well-intentioned choices. Like, when you ever go into a purchase saying, man, I can't wait to waste my money on this.
I hope this turns out poorly.
Like, yeah. Oh, if you want to go a little bit philosophically, I was listening to something on the radio the other day, and I don't know if it was a comedian or like a radio show host or something, and he was saying, like, one time he was, like, just backstage, pacing back and forth and, like, super nervous, and it was, like, either his manager or somebody came up to him and, like, took him by the shoulder and said, hey, the audience wants this to go well as well. Like, you as a performer, you kind of create this idea in your head that like you're pitted against the audience, and it's like your job to like win them over and convince them that you should be here. But at the end of the day, maybe that's right. Maybe the audience, the audience wants to be entertained. They want to see you like do well as well. And I guess the way I should tie this back in is the gear that we use on stage and the way that we use it. And of course, what we buy is a big part of how well we can do our job as well. So worst gear purchases then. Well, you first.
Ooh, I'm trying to find the model. I mean, this didn't turn out super poorly. I just lost a bunch of money on it on the resale. I bought it was an Akai. That's a bad start already.
Oh, hey, I like Akai.
When they work, they work. Just hope you never have to call customer service.
30-year-old product.
Oh, well, you got all the cool vintagey stuff, but
I'm just gonna sit here like this for the rest of the.
Oh, please. We'll put best and worst. I mean, it was a hardware. It was the MPC 1000, 2000. Are those both?
The 1000 is the newer one. It's like half the size of this.
Whatever the blue one was. I don't remember.
Yeah, that's the 1000. Well, there's a blue version of this, but the 1000 came in a kind of a blue color.
Yeah, it's smaller than that. Man, like I just didn't research it very well. I was just kind of gonna use it to upload basically all my backing tracks into it, and then push play, and then it all syncs together. Turns out it has like with the expansion pack is like 40 megabytes of. I'm like, this is like 2 songs.
Oh yeah. It's like. It's incredible how I was thinking about this the other day. Like, my Mac was telling me, like you're running out of space. You only have like 3.8 gigabytes free. Oh man, I'm so low on space. And I thought back, like the first USB flash drive I ever bought was 128 megabytes, and it cost me nearly $70. And and now that's like you could buy one of those for like 12 cents.
Yeah.
But the MPCs, they're kind of that one like I'm lucky enough to have the CF card reader installed, and you can actually put a CF card in up to 1 gigabyte.
Oh, really?
Which is weird because that thing is from the 90s. That was definitely like an aftermarket modification, because the zip drive that you normally had to use it with, I think was like 512 megabytes.
Yeah, it's
maybe.
like borderline proprietary like card. Like it's not proprietary, but it's basically proprietary.
They developed it for that, and then it kind of had some uses elsewhere.
Yeah, and then they like kind of like it's open source. I'm like, well, you made it and just released it. That's not quite open source. But I mean, there was a bad purchase because I bought it, didn't know it didn't do what I needed it to do. And then once I sold it, I figured out how to use it correctly. And then I started to get into actual live beat making after I sold it. Like using physical things because of like how they mess with the bit rate and all that stuff. So basically, I sold it when I needed it and bought it when I didn't.
Nice. Oh yeah, been there, done that. Believe me. So I used to run a small business buying and selling saxophone mouthpieces and general paraphernalia, saxophone paraphernalia, not drug paraphernalia. And
Why not both?
yeah, well, I mean, what's the
Put
difference after
both
a
in your
certain
mouth,
point?
right?
Depends on your MO.
On either
But
end.
that would happen to me. Well, that happened to me twice. I was generally pretty good at not selling things that I actually liked, but I had one mouthpiece that I don't know why I sold it. I was like, I guess I just wanted to try something new, or maybe I'd gotten tired of it, and I thought, yeah, whatever, I'll sell it. It was like a super rare mouthpiece, and I sold it for enough money, but like not as much as I probably could have sold it for. And I bought a mouthpiece that was common as dirt, and ended up really not liking it. I'm like, wow, what a terrible trade! Like, why did I do that? So that was full of regret. Trying to think worst purchase I've ever made.
Just realized that like wow, I've compartmentalized this to like justify. There's a couple of things that was like it made me really sad when these things broke, and I just like partitioned this part of my memory away.
Oh yeah, definitely. Oh,
what you got?
I mean, does worst purchase just mean like the most useless, or like actually
Yeah,
like?
we'll go with that.
Okay, well I've got something to show you then.
2 hours later.
This
What model is that?
that's a Super Lead 100.
Why do you have a Super Lead 100?
That's a really good question, Cam. That's a really.
I mean, it's a great sounding amp. It's louder than your PA though.
I can count on one hand the number of times I've had it on stage with me.
Do you even have a guitar cab?
I do. I have got a Yamaha 412 with Celestians in it tucked over there.
That you also never use,
They're
right?
not connected to this. I can't tell you, I've brought my stack on stage a grand total of 4 times, I think.
Ugh.
So yeah, this is a pretty bad one because it's bloody expensive, it's hard to sell, and it's just, I mean, yeah, it's great, but it's also entirely useless to me. So yeah, this would be a big one.
3 weeks later.
There's probably some truth to that, trying to justify my indiscretions. But I've had that since high school, and yeah, I've had it a while. And I always have this dream someday I'll be able to like take my Marshall stack on stage again, but it might be a while.
You can do it any day. It's just I hope you don't have to set up anything else along with your desktop computer on stage.
Right? Yeah, exactly.
What's some gear that's been broken that like you bought it and it just broke at some point beyond repair?
Beyond repair. Well,
and that can mean functionally or financially beyond repair.
That would be most things I bought. I don't remember the last time I bought something new. So this bass is not broken beyond repair. In fact, actually now it's quite a good bass. But when I received it, so this is a '62 Fender Stack Knob Jazz, the reissue, I think.
I said worst purchase, not best.
No, but when I got it, it was completely unplayable, and it turns out there was just a ton of wrong stuff with the bridge. The body's been drilled for string mutes, which I don't know why you'd ever do that to a jazz bass. The neck was warped. It was basically unplayable. So I had to spend essentially not an insubstantial amount of money making it playable again. Because I thought, oh, this is going to be a great deal. Like, oh, the price is so cheap, it says it's playable, like, online. Let me just go ahead and buy it. It wasn't playable.
It wasn't playable.
It was not playable. Things that are broken beyond repair. Do things that I bought and then modified and broke in the process of doing so beyond repair?
Oh my god, yes.
I had this really nice Yamaha acoustic guitar, and are you familiar with John Martin?
No.
He's an acoustic guitarist, but he's got this thing all rigged up where he has a pickup like basically taped in the sound hole. Mm-hmm. And I thought, yeah, I kind of like. He's one of my favorite guitarists, and I thought I like that. I want to do that too. So I tried to do this to my poor Yamaha, and it completely spoiled the sound. Like you can't play it, you can't, and the electric sound is awful. I don't know what I was thinking, because I took this cheap pickup, like this cheap DiMarzio pickup. It sounds like garbage when it's plugged in, and because there's all this like tape and wire stuck in the sound hole, the acoustic tone is totally ruined.
So it's just bad louder.
Yeah, it's far worse and loud. So that was one modification failure on my part. just looking around me right now just to see. I'm probably sitting amongst evidence of my own.
Mine, I think every person, every musician goes through this phase where you start like buying other instruments because you, as an excuse for something.
Mm.
And so I bought 2 pin flutes and a mandolin. I never learned to play the pin flutes. I put the mandolin literally on the like my last 3 albums to say I did to justify its existence.
Right. Yeah.
Like
I've done that as well. Yeah, like making sure you just play it on one track to be like, yeah, I did it. Like this is why I got it.
Yeah, it's so, and I just need to get rid of it. Every time I look at it, it's like, oh, I should play that. It's like having, I mean, it's like having a bunch of books. Like you like the idea of yourself that you bought those books. You know, like I am kind of a person who would buy and read these books, and that you never read them. Isn't there a Japanese word for that?
Yes, there is. In fact, I think Marie Kondo has probably like said it multiple times in her efforts to declutter the world.
I mean, I think it's like musicians are the worst. I mean, I think not the worst. We're bad about it, and I call them toys, because are you collecting toys or tools? Because tools you get rid of when you don't use them anymore. You know.
So that's a really poignant statement. Are you collecting?
I mean, I'm swimming in lots of toys. Don't get me wrong, but man, a bad purchase for me. It was, I got this bright idea that I was gonna make guitar pedals. I've had that idea twice. One of them I haven't given up on it yet. So this will be a future bad purchase.
I was gonna say I could have sworn I saw like some breadboards and like a soldering iron last time I went to your place.
Buying the breadboards and the soldering iron is the easy part. Actually, building something that works is the hard part. I probably spent like $100 worth of like components and stuff. I ended up just never building anything that actually ever worked because I didn't know what I was doing.
Yep, been there, done that.
Man, I had this one. This is my. So I had this bright idea when I was younger because I didn't have enough money to do normal guitar setups, but I wanted to do a bunch of different stuff. So I bought a keyboard amp. It was like a 15-inch Behringer keyboard amp, like 15-inch speaker. So yeah, this is like modern Behringer, like. And I got a Korg multi-effects unit. I don't know if you ever heard of Korg multi-effects units. Probably not, and there's a reason for that. And it was just, I didn't know what I was doing. I was like, oh, this is cool. And I never used the cab modeling on it. And to me, just distortion all the way up sounded good on the heaviest channel. So when I turned up the cab model, it's just, looking back, it's just straight like industrial like tone. And I always thought it was weird. If I hit multiple strings, the whole thing, all the notes would get quieter because it was clipping so hard. Like it couldn't handle like how much gain I was doing into it.
Nice.
And so I'm not sure if that was a bad purchase or not, but
I'd like to hear that at some point.
and then the crossover blew, so it was just the low freak, mostly like it was just the mids and lows. So I just cranked up the highs to compensate, because that's how crossovers work.
That sounds like you missed your calling to be in like a grunge-core band or something.
I mean, I should have sampled it from like. Oof, it was bad.
You know, there's an expression in Korea, or there's this joke in Korean, Behringer. People will call it poringo, which is like, throwing away stuff, like trash, like that's what you throw away. And like, but these days it's gotten like, as we have both become big fans of Behringer and everything they're doing. So if Behringer is watching, yes, we do want that endorsement.
Dude, they just made a new synthesizer too.
Yeah, I saw.
Just it's like it's super modular too. Not semi, it's super modular. I'm trying not to look at it too hard because I'll buy it.
I mean, I'm just waiting for something to offer a convincing case for why I should get into modular. Okay. This is the path that leads to a bad gear purchase, right? So I feel like the point of modular is that you have a very specific sound that you want to make, right? Or you have a very specific
absolute control over every aspect of it.
But there's this culture amongst synthesists that modular is like the ultimate. It's like the zenith, like the apex predator of the synthesizer world. And like if you go on synth Reddit, like all that people are ever talking about is like their modulars or their Model Ds. And I think that as a person who makes electronic music, it's like there are so many toys available. You know, I can't tell you how many like sample packs or like, software synthesizers or something I've just spent like $20 or $30 on. It's like, oh, it's so cheap. And then you look back at everything you've bought, and it's like, how often am I using this? And how much money have I put into it? And it's actually quite frightening. I'm like, wow, damn, I spent like $1,000 on stuff I have never put on a track, nor have I
It's
ever,
like a flanger pedal, you know?
Right.
Yeah, like you're like, this would be super cool in that one part of that one song that I'm gonna play like 3 times.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, I think
So-
it comes down to like minimum viable product. You know, like what is the basic thing that you need to make what you need, and then 1 or 2 interchangeable on sale like novelty items that kind of are on a revolving door. I think is a good mentality.
Yeah. It's gonna kind of like decluttering your studio, sort of.
I mean, I recommend like, I mean, have like by recommending, I didn't do this, and I kind of wish I had. Like, you and I bought like a cheap interface, and then everything else we put into it cost way more than the interface does.
True. I'm still using that interface actually.
Me too. I know you and I have spent probably like combined like 60 hours almost buying other interfaces. To be fair, we use a Tascam 16.
US
41?
1641. Yeah.
It's their like low. It's basically the cheapest at the time, like 8+ track interface you could have gotten, and
And actually, when it came out, the headamps compared to other interfaces of similar spec, actually not bad.
oh really?
But yeah, not bad, not good, but not bad. And I guess my mentality was like, until I really have something worth putting into a nice interface, why not? Why not just go with something that's kind of functional? The problem I've been running into it is Tascam has not been particularly good at continuing to offer support with like up-to-date drivers that are reliable. I've run into some issues with that.
I think that's probably just as much as Mac's fault probably than Tascam's fault.
Oh, it definitely is. In fact, I have one Mac that's like not upgraded to a specific software version because it won't work on anything later
I
than that.
remember, was it Pro Tools 10 or whatever? I know a lot of people were like hanging back on the last version because like the newest Macs like just didn't work well with it.
Yeah, I mean, Macs have been going in kind of a pretty bad direction for audio anyway these past few years.
Trying to get that paper. I mean, I guess they did a good job, but
They've done a really good job. It's just unfortunate that they seem to have forgotten about their prosumer market.
all right, here we go. So as far as modular goes, I bought a modular power supply. I got an okay deal on it. It wasn't great. It wasn't bad. It was all right. It wasn't that bad. Not a bad deal. And it has literally sat on the shelf the entire. It's moved once when I moved houses, and then it sat on that shelf, and it hasn't moved since. Because I'm like, it's too expensive to buy these individual pieces, but I feel bad getting rid of this. So
It's kind of modular is like razors. You buy the razor handle, and it's like, oh, that wasn't so bad. Let me go ahead and spend $800 this year on razor blades.
You're like, okay, these 16 extra, like, is this really making my life better? Is this like, I can just use the cheapo, like, whatever disposable ones? Like, I'll just buy 60 of them. And is it make a difference? I mean, I don't, we're not real, girthy.
Yeah, I mean, I am
department,
not really like, I don't speak with any amount of authority on this particular subject. But in
it's a
my
weak
case,
metaphor.
I'll tell you a bad purchase I made. Well, it's not necessarily bad. I just ended up replacing it very quickly after I got it.
What's her name?
It was the APC40 Mark I, the white one, the Ableton controller. And I searched high and low to get that special.
Oh, I do
white
remember
one.
that. Yeah, I got rid of mine pretty quick too. I didn't have a cool, pretty white one, but
Yeah, and I still have it because I can't bring myself to get rid of it because I spent like 18 hours trying to find it. But I got the Mark II like a month after not quite that quickly, but maybe 2 months afterwards. And that's become, it's smaller, it's sleeker, it's bus powered, and it's like, oh man, like it's tough to, like why would I use the old one when the new one is so much better?
I mean, I have no complaints about that. Was it MPC 40? Is that what it is?
APC 40.
APC 40. Yeah.
And I love it. It's a great controller. It's just it requires a power supply, and there's just a few things about it that
And it's
kind
too big. And
it is,
the
it's
side
just
the side
stupid.
rubber things. I ended up taking those off. I think I showed you that.
Yeah,
You can
yeah. I was
unscrew 'em.
actually and then you can get like those like wood panels.
Oh, but then you're like, all right, well, for the price of this, I'll just buy the next model.
Right. Okay. I did, however, take it on one tour with me. That first Asia tour that I went on. That was what I used the entire time. So I guess at least it got its mileage in, right?
Here's a good purchase. So I bought this. It's a cheap Yamaha digital piano. Let me see what model we got. NP30. I think I spent $130 on this thing, and it's got like its selling point was that it's a travel piano, so it's really light, so you can take it on stage with you. I was like, you think you're just trying to say that it has nothing resembling weighted keys at all, and it's a selling point? But it's true, and it's a cheap, feels cheap and plasticky, but it's super light. But the thing is, the reason I like it is I have a 76 key keyboard that I spent almost nothing on that is here all the time. That's not connected to any computers. I can bang out ideas, and it's like at my left hand all the time. And it's a little bit noisy if you ever try to record it. It doesn't sound. I mean, it sounds fine, but like having just a physical thing that I can touch immediately with no boot up time, no computer, no anything, and
That's nice. I
it's
think
guilt
that's
free.
really
That's the best part.
Yeah, exactly. So I've kind of you know I was looking around, and now that I'm looking at my equipment case, I'm noticing a noticeable like bow in the center of it, which is concerning me. But I'll have to look at that later.
Oh, actually,
Yeah.
so that's at least for me, maybe not you now, but like I bought this giant pedal board case because I made a lot of poor pedal decisions, and I wanted to have all the pedals in the world because I wasn't that good a guitarist. It made me feel better. And so I bought this from rondomusic.com, and it's bigger than a guitar case.
Oh yeah,
But
in fact, and I bought the same one upon your recommendation, and I've been loving it. I just
Yeah.
don't want it to collapse, as it looks like it's
and
very close to doing
it's
behind me here.
cardboard, it's cheap, but I lug it to every single gig. Probably 70 shows. It's one of the best purchases because I have like my entire live rig is on there. I mean, I have a Korg synthesizer. I have a bass. I have a bass EQ into a Sans amp. I have my audio interface. I have my computer. I have a mixer. I have my light interface. I have my wireless unit interface, and basically everything plugs into that. And it's like, ugh. So all I have to do is plug in like 3 cables and unpack and just stick this on the keyboard stand.
That's
The setup is so much
great.
easier. And
Absolutely.
there is not another case that size that
I know.
found
I
on the
can't, I
internet.
can't find any equivalent like from Anvil or like anything. It's just like it's the perfect format.
Yeah, and it's light, which is good. I'm sure it's going to break, and I'm sure I'm going to be sad, but like that day has not happened.
But you can buy another one for what, like $100? Like,
Yeah. They make Agile guitars, which is like they're also, and they're cheap, but like the mid-range Agile guitars, I mean, they sound really good, man. If you're looking for like especially like 7-string and 8-string and I don't know, like what do you call the fan frets and all that stuff?
oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
All the Gent guys were into that when Gent was a relevant word.
Sure. Okay, good to know. Good purchase. Well, this 1950s Auto-Link tenor saxophone mouthpiece, Tone Master, the same sort of model John Coltrane played. Tenor sax tone is something that I've kind of really gone back and forth with a number of times over my career of playing. And what I realized is after a while, I was just like completely. Everything I had tried and everything I had played had been in one very specific kind of style of, mouthpiece. And I thought, and they just happened to be kind of difficult to play. Difficult to play because you can get like more volume out of them, but you can also sort of bend notes a little bit easier. But it's so much work. And there was one day it came just like, why am I working unnecessarily hard to play my instrument? Like, let me get a setup that accommodates like my body chemistry better. And ever since I've been playing it, it's like my tenor, like my whole like I used to every time I thought about playing tenor, it would be like, oh geez, like man, I don't want to play tenor. And then I was thinking like, wow, like that's terrible. I shouldn't feel that way about my saxophone. So I completely changed my setup. If any of you watching play saxophone, I went from a really large tip opening to a really small one and I went from kind of medium soft reeds to extremely hard reeds. So I basically did a complete 180, and it's like I actually look forward to playing tenor a lot now. Like it feels like a much more honest voice. So that was a good purchase. Changing that setup around.
Dude, so that's an interesting thing. So like there's a lot of gear for like a formula. What makes gear good? Obviously that's a philosophical, good is obviously a relative term, but like that made you enjoy the music and made it fun.
Mm.
You know, so if gear doesn't make it a fun experience, then it's not good gear.
Right.
And
Well,
so
I mean, yeah. If you buy something and it makes you less happy to do, whatever you're doing with it, like that's bad, right?
well, I mean, I guess it would go back to the flanger pedal. So
Mm.
like, does it necessarily help you from a music perspective? Probably not. Does it make it fun to play good guitar? Maybe it does. You know, and in that sense, maybe you should buy that flanger pedal. You know,
That's a good point. I mean, and then you have the difference. Like, are you collecting toys or tools? Well, both have their value,
and
actually.
maybe you can have certain things that are toys. You know,
Well,
like it's okay to
I
have
hope
a toy
that's
pile. I
okay,
think.
because I'm sitting in a room full of probably about 80% toys and 10% tools and 10% trash. Oh,
That's
okay. I'll
interesting.
tell you one bad purchase, and this one was not terribly financially deleterious, so I kind of let myself go on this one. But I quite liked the idea. Actually. These pocket operators by Teenage Engineering.
I'm
They're good. I really like the idea, and the sounds. If you plug them in, they're not bad, but they're just so difficult to use in any practical workflow. And I haven't used them at all, and I wish I could, but I just like I've got real drum machines as well, and it's like, oh man, like what? Why? Like why would I do that?
I mean,
So
I literally told my
those-
girlfriend, I'm like, hey, if you ever like buy me something musical, do not buy me these. I know every music blog ever is gonna say like, this is what you should buy your synth player boyfriend. Do not get me one of these.
Yeah, they're a bit useless. No, I shouldn't say that. I put together one track with them, and I was like, wow, that was cool. I enjoyed that. And I really want to be working. I really just wish I could pull up Ableton and be like, oh, everything's done in 4 minutes. Like,
Yeah,
what I
I
took
mean,
4 hours to do. And yeah, like there was like the experience of using the hardware and everything. I guess for me, it was like a lot of work to get some pretty middle of the road sounds.
Mhm.
Like if it was something super unique and it's like I put in that effort to achieve something different than I could have done with anything else, that would have been fine. But I think I used it in such a way that I was basically using a less equipped method to achieve something I already knew how to do with my existing stuff.
I got a bad purchase, so it's an equivalently good purchase. So trying to find a vocal preamp is a hard thing to do.
Oh,
There's a lot of snobbery on the internet. For the most part, most of them don't have very many features. Like they're like, hey, we have a volume knob and a gain knob. It's like, cool. Well, what if I want EQ? Well, buy a rack EQ. I was like, okay. Well, what if I want a compressor? Well, you need to buy another compressor too. I was like, all right. Well, do you
Yeah,
have like
before
an
you know it, you
all-in-one?
have
They're
a-
like, well, kinda. Like I'm like, well, I see a bunch of cheap ones, but like, I bought a Joe Meek. What is it called? 3Q, which is like this half rack space green. Like it's got an EQ and a compressor in it,
Mhm.
and a preamp. And I've used it on. Actually, I recorded a lot of transients on that vocally, but basically I just used it to boost this SM7B because it's too quiet.
Oh, this thing is extremely low gain. Yeah.
And so from that perspective, is great. But that compressor on that thing is just garbage, man. It is horrible. Like it's either like zero compression or just maximum negative, like just like a ratio of like 20 billion, like infinite. It like turns your sound down the louder you get. I mean, like literally goes down, not logarithmically, like straight down. I was
I
like,
see.
not like a limiter. It's just the most. I'm like, God, this sounds horrible. Like, so I just ended up doing everything in the box, and I just didn't like vocal preamps. And the problem with, and I didn't appreciate what they could do, and so I consider that a bad purchase because it robbed me and made performing vocals a chore, made writing vocals a chore. So not only did it not make it fun, it made it less fun than it ought to be.
It made it worse. Yeah.
And alternatively, I got this the Art Pro channel, the first one, and it has this like almost Pro Toolsy, like old school Pro Toolsy kind of crunch to it. which I didn't know that was until I got this. But if you can drive it really hard and it still sounds okay. And the compressor is okay, but I use the compressor as a limiter. So basically just the upper top, like the highest things it clips off. And that thing is just fun. It's just, it makes me want to like sing quietly and loudly. And so the piece of gear, made my music better? I'm not indirectly. It sounds fine, sure. Like but it's made music fun.
Yeah, so definitely. I've had good luck with Art as well. I have the Art Pro VLA too. It's like sort of a tube compressor-ish.
Yeah.
I think it's actually a Vactrol, so it's not quite tube, but yeah, I really really like that as well. And yeah, Art, they make good products.
It's okay. I use
This is like, it's really middle of the road and it works, you know?
I use it's a rack EQ, the 343, that's what it's called. It's like it's a dual.
Yeah, I was looking at that. Is that good?
It's a little noisy. I mean, it's not bad. Like, I don't know if I would track much through it unless you were okay with the noise. Like, it's not clean. I'll go with that. That's not inherently a problem for the stuff I do, but it's not clean. It's not it's transparent again. Yeah, and I got the Art MP, the tiny little preamps.
Oh yeah.
They don't sound good for, like, again, they're not transparent, but if you clip them, like, they have a cool, interesting sound. It's not pleasant. And it doesn't it's just, as soon as it hits, it's like, bam, distortion. There's gradual, like saturation. It's not saturation, it's distortion. Like, I know that they're the same thing, but, and so if you want some, like, interesting color and you want to run a drum through, basically want to take a drum machine and just destroy that sound, they're great for that. That's it.
On the complete opposite end of the spectrum, a good purchase for me, I'm not even sure I want to out myself, like, in public. On these, because I want them all, and people really haven't seemed to have caught on to them yet. I've got these 2-channel Symmetrix preamps. In fact, that's what I'm running this microphone through now.
You were telling me about this.
Yeah, originally designed as a broadcast preamp. So
yeah, they have like some weird controls on them.
Well, yeah, and it is squeaky clean. And
which model are they?
I use the Symmetrix 302s. I've got 3 of them. And it's actually kind of tough to find one with the power supply, and the power supply on its own is like $100. So if you can find one with the power supply included, that's definitely what you want. But yeah, I've got 3 of them, and like a total of 6 microphone preamp channels, and they are squeaky.
You're just stealing them all.
No, yeah, don't go out and buy them because I want them all. But yeah, they're super super clean and super powerful. Like, you know how low gain the SM7B is.
Yes.
And
it gets noisy quick.
It does, and that's why you need a super clean preamp to feed it through, or at least it works best for me feeding it through something super clean. And the Symmetrics really do it. Of course, we've all looked at the Neves or the Millennias or, the Warm Audio or whatever.
The mortgages.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Well, Warm Audio is not bad, but I've heard mixed things about their reliability. That's the main reason I haven't gone there.
Me too, and that's kind of been keeping me away from it. But I do want to try it because they make a version of the Pultec, which I've really been interested in. Pultec is one of my favorite effects.
Yeah, that is you.
And I use Waves' Pultec. I've got a couple of other Pultec models. I've tracked through a Pultec once or twice, and I just love it. I think you can use it on everything. I use it on my mastering bus. I use it on almost every track. It's a wonderful, wonderful tool. Even if you don't even touch the the threshold or the attenuation, just running it through it, it just makes it really kind of nice and warm and organic. I guess part of what I'm always trying to do is I want my recordings to sound alive. Like, I don't want it to sound like necessarily I concocted it in a lab. I don't want it to taste like Schmeat. I want it to be like, just like this organic like burger that you really enjoy, like grass-fed beef. That's kind of the sound that I like to go for. Something a bit, maybe a bit more organic, but that's not quite the right word. But I'll actually introduce fake tape saturation or add. Okay, good purchase. Soundtoys Decapitator. Harmonic saturation.
Have we ever talked about this?
I think I've mentioned it once, and you made that same sound. There was just sort of this nod of acknowledgement between us.
Like, I don't use it like other. I don't. How do you use it? I guess because it's pretty CPU heavy.
It is, but thankfully, I will often, when I use it, I mean, I definitely use it in the mastering bus. And usually what I'll do is, it's just like if something is sounding just like a little bit too, not like too clean, but too sterile, and you can't really put your finger on it. It's one of those indescribable things. But, I'll basically turn it up so like, I've got the actual effect driving. The Decapitator is a saturator, essentially. It's kind of a complicated effect, but it essentially adds some of the saturation you would get in different formats of recording.
And it has a mix knob.
It does, and that's what I do. I get it so the effect sounds like really kind of.
Yeah, well, it has a console. It's a preamp emulator that has like a couple like. Basically, they have pretty significant EQ models that you can't touch, and then it has a high pass and low pass, and then it has a dark and bright knob. And, I like the fact that you can't tweak those things because it allows you to like, I just needs to be darker, and then like, okay, now
exactly, or like, oh, like let me see how this sounds. Like one thing that I really don't like is like clicking around and like fiddling with all these numbers and values, and I don't really understand.
Well, that makes one of us, but
right, but like when I see a box with knobs on it and it has parameters like. Filters and EQ curves and compression ratios. It's like visually that like connects into my brain a little bit easier. I guess like I always have this kind of hardware based model in my head.
Yeah, you do.
And that's why I really like the Decapitator, because sometimes just like there was a period where I could always tell that my recordings were made in a bedroom studio, and I was like, oh, what is it? Like it's not the level, it's not the master. Like the levels are good, the limiter is in the right place. Like what is it? And I know I sound like I'm advertising for the freaking plugin, but like I added
that. Good, man. Like
I added that to my mastering chain, and it just sounded better. And I think it's partially why like people prefer to listen to vinyls over CDs, for instance, when it's like a really nice vinyl. And there's just this kind of really subtle distortion or saturation that's makes everything sound and feel a little bit more natural. So the Decapitator, that was a great purchase. Expensive as hell, but
it is expensive. Well, they do sales periodically if you can wait. I will say, man, this is a recent purchase. I bought. It was on sale. Is the Sound Toys Devil Lock Deluxe?
Oh, is that the drum compressor thing?
It's basically like it's way too much compression, and it's like a very very distorted compressor. But again, it's meant to like run at like 5% mix.
Right.
God, like it was just if you're looking for like a modern like Bring Me the Horizon style like metal drum sound, like throw that on the bus. It was just like bam. I'm like, that's it, done, ship it. Like it was like instant. Like it was the bus compressor that I've wanted for modern metal drums.
Nice.
It's just like it sounds so good.
I've got to look into that.
Yeah,
Sound Toys, man, they do great effects. They've got their crystallizer as well, which it's like a reverse delay, and
it's cool. Like it's a gimmicky thing to me. Like it's not like a workhorsey tool. Like I'm like I'd have to build the entire sound around this plugin.
That's the thing. I thought the same thing about it when I first got it, and then I started using it in on stupid things. Like I'll be playing, like have a vocal part or something, and just like I'm like, oh, this needs like a little bit more like magic wand sound at the end.
It's more like an ocean Gulf Stream current behind it.
Right. All those like weird arty philosophical things, and and like anytime I start thinking about like, well, how about I try this and see how it sounds, and at first I'll be like, nah, this is gimmicky, that's stupid, and then you play around with it for a bit and it's like, oh yeah, this is actually pretty usable.
Is there any plugins that you bought that where you're like did not do what you needed them to do?
Oh god, yeah. There's this thing by Data Life called the Sausage Fattener.
Dude, I love that plugin.
I love it too, but the problem with it was I was just using it to excuse good production of all of my tracks. And I was like, oh yeah, man, my songs are so loud. There's so much bass. Like,
this plugin is called the Sausage Fattener, and it has like basically like two knobs. It's just like, and it has this angry looking sausage. Like what?
The more you turn it up, the more it goes like, yeah.
He just like gets angrier and angrier. Like, and it's like a limiter distorter thing. Like. It sounds great. Like it sounds too good. It enhances.
And the funny thing is, I watched their demo of it, and they were showing like they used it as a mastering plugin. They showed you the waveform, and it was like this block.
Oh, just
and they were like bragging about that. I'm like, that's not really how a dynamic track like might look. Like if you have an EDM track that really just has to be pumping all the time, of course you want it to look like that. but I use a lot of instruments that have pretty intense transients and pieces of the song where I like the quiet parts to be quiet and I like the loud parts to be loud, and I like there to be a difference between those two things. And the way that the compression of the sausage fattener works really is basically meant to correct that. So
Yes.
it's good. And what I've figured out is I actually really like using it at extremely mild settings.
Hmm.
I used to just like put it on like the final step of the
Oh,
note,
yeah.
just like
Oh,
crank
you
it.
master with it.
Yeah, I used it the
Oh,
drum
see,
and bass bus, and then I would use it as like a mastering plugin sometimes too.
yeah, I used it on and both either never both, but as a drum bus or the instrument bus because it kind of limits it. So I often like kind of run my instrument bus through some limiting, so it doesn't. I can't get but so much in the way of the vocals sometimes. But I don't think I would run that because it doesn't have an input gain knob either.
It does actually. They updated it. It does now.
Well, isn't that an output gain?
Oh, is that output gain?
Yeah, because
Oh,
like
that might
I
be
can
it
turn
then.
it up afterwards. I need to be able to like because
Yeah, trim it.
especially like
Trim it coming
compressor.
in.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean,
So that was I do like it in very specific situations, but for a long time I was like, oh, this is how you make your tracks loud. Like,
I mean, yeah, it will.
I mean, and
Spotify
they were
will
indeed
dock you
loud.
so hard on your no dynamics, but
Yeah, but like then I went back and like listened to a few of like the first like EDM tracks I mastered myself, and I was like, wow, this is kind of poopy. Like,
what are some other bad plugins that you bought?
other bad plugins that I bought. Let me think. Just pull up Ableton and this is my new computer. I haven't got all my plugins loaded yet. Actually, there was one a vocoder called was it Robotronics? Sugar Bytes, Robotronic, yeah.
I like Sugarbyte stuff. Though.
I like Sugar Bytes too. I have a plugin called Effectrix, which I love.
Yes.
And that I use on almost everything. I love it. Well, maybe not everything. I used to use it a lot. These days I've kind of like shifted away to some other stuff. But automated effects, really good. Really nice for electronic like music as well, because like all those like filter sweeps and automations and like just harmonizations that work out really well with Effectrix. They also make a vocoder called Robotronic, which I don't think is a bad plugin. I just can't bloody figure out how to use it. It doesn't work like
I'm sure this
normal
isn't
vocoder.
bad, but
Well, because like I the first vocoder I ever used was a hardware vocoder, and then the software vocoder I went to after that was Orange Vocoder, and that was what I had for years and years and years. And then for a while I just didn't have a computer that could use Orange anymore, so I was like kind of searching for this new vocoder plugin, and I thought I really like Effectrix, so I'll give Robotronic a try. And I can't figure out how to make it work. Like I set all the parameters in a way that would make sense for to get the effect I want, and it just doesn't do it. So actually, I have just gone back to using the Ableton stock vocoder, which sounds great actually.
I have not used your vocoder on that one at all. But I've tried a couple different ones, and I found this is what, and none of them like I'm like this is a really simple sound. Just give me a carrier and one modulator, and I had to crank the input gain. I mean, like plus like 15, 20 dB.
Wow.
And then it sounded like, oh, there it is. Like
Maybe I
which
have the input gain set too low then.
But I mean, you probably have it set like at a normal level. Like maybe that's just the. I mean, I found I had to really boost the input gain. Again, I had the exact same. It was. I didn't pay for this one. It was the. I can't remember the name of the plugin. Man. This is the same people. They do like a Juno emulation.
Oh, Tal,
Tal. Yeah. Oh man, I look their stuff a lot, but their vocoder is just like.
No.
I mean, you just have to crank the input gain on it. And then it sounds okay. It's not great. It's okay, but I mean, it's a vocoder. I'm not even sure what a good vocoder sounds like, but.
I think the vocoder in your Princess is Another Castle sounds pretty good. That's Ableton vocoder. By the way.
Really?
Mm-hmm, yeah.
Damn. I have a bone to pick with Ableton stock plugins. I have no reason to, I don't have a problem with like Pro Tools or Cubase's or anybody else's like stock, but I don't like. It's just the stripped down UI bothers me. I think.
Oh yeah, well I feel the same way, but the only reason I decided to give it a try is because there's this great Imogen Heap cover on YouTube of Hide and Seek, and there's this beautiful like natural rendition. Like it sounds so good.
It's the
the
damn
lady's-
like stock vocoders.
Yeah, the lady's a great singer too, and like somebody was like, "What the hell vocoder are you using?" She's like, "Oh, Ableton," and here's a video that told me how to set it up. I'm like, okay,
It's just followed some 2-minute tutorial.
yeah,
and
no,
like,
yeah, it's like a 10-minute tutorial on YouTube, and it works, and it's just it sounds remarkably good. I was shocked. Now, okay, I've got a good purchase, and this one is very specific to saxophone playing. So,
as if your tenor mouthpiece wasn't.
well, that one was. So saxophone you have to use a neck strap for because it's like nobody's strong enough to just like hold a sax, right? You need some like support from the neck. So is you have your neck strap, you have your saxophone, neck strap clips on like this, and you adjust it, and like this is how you play, right? Now what you'll notice is this a lot of neck straps, and this is one of actually the better neck straps. Even this nice leather one, see, like when I'm playing, it's basically squeezing my neck.
And I never really singing, right?
Yeah, and I never really thought about it because like that was just kind of like, that was what was available. And I found this Japanese neck strap upon recommendation of my old saxophone teacher. So yeah, check this out. It's actually this deal. First of all, it's red, which I like, and you'll notice it basically hangs it right off of my this part of my shoulder.
Yeah.
So it's literally like going from singing like this to like this.
Your volume's like boosted by 5 dB now everywhere.
Yeah, and it made my saxophone playing so much better. Like it's ridiculous. Like these products are like, oh, like improve your playing overnight. It's like yeah, whatever. This one actually did. This one was an enormous difference. Like. Now when I wear a normal neck strap, I feel like I'm being choked whilst playing saxophone. It's like I can't get the air I want out of the horn, and it's like, yeah, this really really changed things. So it's by a Japanese company called Marmaduke.
That's a super Japanese name, so.
And that was that was a really really good. Thank you. To my beloved teacher Perry Conticchio for recommending it. That was a big one.
Nice. And sort of on the same thing. Well, no, it's not really that related. But I would say one of the best purchases I've made. That's again made music more fun. Is about like a decent wireless unit, and about one of the nicer Line 6s. And it really wasn't that expensive, but man, like being able to just be completely cord free. It's like
I 100% agree, and in fact, I made this decision after my last tour. When it was a show in Shanghai, and what happened was my microphone was connected to my belt pack, which was connected to my saxophone, and I had to go and adjust one of the things on the projector. So, not even thinking, I just like jumped across the stage and pulled my saxophone off the stand, and it broke it, and like I dropped my saxophone on stage because of it, and that's when I thought, okay, that scene in The Incredibles where she's like, no capes, no cables. That was what made my decision. No cables. So yeah, I'm totally with you on the wireless thing. Freaking expensive for the microphone I use, but
I'm sure.
But it's worth it. I think it's worth it.
All right, so I guess to wrap things up, I would say a good gear purchase is first, be honest. If it's a toy, that's not a problem. It's just if it's a toy or a tool, and if it's a toy, does it actually make making music more fun? And if it's a tool, does it actually serve you?
Does it do what you need it to do?
And not get rid of that mess.
Mm-hmm.
Owning it for longer doesn't justify its existence, no matter how much you paid for it.
Now I feel like you're talking directly to my Marshall Super Lead.
Hey, I mean, you do you, man. I'm just saying, you could probably fetch a nice price for that thing.
Yeah, maybe. I hope so, because paid a nice price for it.
I'm just saying that could be a profit synthesizer.
Yeah, it's you
About the
make
same price.
you make a convincing argument, Cam. You make a convincing argument.
I doubt you'll find somebody who will trade you those two, but
You never know.
that's definitely worth a shot, man. That's a nice amp. So, assume it still works, right?
So far as I'm aware.
Yeah, the one time you used it on stage, it worked.
The last time I played it 7 years ago, it did.
Well, perfect. Well, if you want to buy Disco's super lead, and you want to trade him a profit for him, hit him up.
Yeah. Call me.
Yeah. So to zoom out, me and Disco are both super active on Instagram. His tag is
Disco Volante.
at Disco Volante. I'll put something on the screen.
Disco Volante. Disco Volante. Everything. Oh, damn. Everything's going wrong. Disco Volante.
And my personal is Cam Gillette, the Cam Gillette, which is not super interesting, and my band, which is way more interesting, is at Smoke from All the Friction, which those are both here. There's both linked to it. Definitely
They
come
are a
check out
very
either
interesting
of our
band. I
music.
fully recommend them.
Yeah, I think they're pretty good. So we got new music coming out this year. I think both of us do, right?
Yes, we do. I've been in the studio these past 2 weeks. My performance schedule was so intense, like towards the end of the year. I just had no time to get anything down on tape. But forthcoming. Looking forward to. You should be looking forward to hearing Cam's new stuff too. He's shown me a few of the scratch tracks, and they're good. They're really good. Yeah.
Well,
But
thanks for watching,
maybe
everybody.
we'll get a teaser on one of your first impression song.
No spoiler. I tease all this stuff all the time. I can't keep it in.
But yeah, right. I'll leave it to you then to close us out.
Cool. Well, that was my closing. So thanks for watching. Later, guys.